Welcome to everybody that's online as well. Today we're going to be having our speaker, Rodney, as well as Francesca, who will be talking to us today about how the Church Street Pedestrianization Pilot came to be. So they'll be talking a bit about some of their inspirations, the process that it took for them to get approved, some of the challenges that they faced, and some of the opportunities for the street's future resurfacing, as well as the city's wider pedestrian policy framework. So please welcome Rodney and Francesca, and welcome to everybody else as well. So, is it anyone's first time here at Civic Tech? Okay, so thank you for coming. So just to give you a brief rundown about Civic Tech. So Civic Tech is a volunteer-run community with, we've got designers, policy enthusiasts, developers, and really just anybody who really cares about making Toronto more inclusive, as well as more accessible and equitable. We've been having weekly gatherings since about 2015. It's about 11 years. And so we just like to be able to meet with other people, work on civic innovation, and as well as working on our own projects that help enable advocates and civic innovation. So my name is Aaron. I'm going to be your MC for the night. And we've also got Gurpreet, who will be online with us, being our online MC. And so if you're having any trouble, please just drop her a line. I do want to do a quick land acknowledgement before we begin. So here, downtown Toronto, this is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and it remains home to many diverse First Nations peoples, Inuit, as well as Métis people. Civic Tech relies on voluntary contributions from the community. I just want to remind everybody else as well a bit about our code of conduct. We're a volunteer-driven community. We rely on everybody here to help create the space and make sure that it's open, respectful, welcoming, and we want to make sure that it keeps things engaging, constructive. We want to respect everybody's different experiences and be mindful about how we show up for each other while we're in the room here. So we don't tolerate any type of harassment. If anything doesn't feel right, please just speak out, reach out to any of the organizers here, and they'll help you out. And a quick shout out to Alex, as well as the Center for Analytics and AI Engineering for hosting us in this space. All right, so we're just about ready to invite our speakers. Without further ado, we'd like to introduce Rodney, as well as Francesca, and to tell us a bit about the Church Street Pedestrianization Pilot.
Hi, my name is Rodney, and this is Francesca. I'll start us off first. I guess I'll jump right into it. This is kind of my inspiration. This is for multiple years, and through most of the year, there's always crowds, especially at night. You can see people lining up for the bar, also just chatting, and people sometimes even overflow into the street already, into the parking lane. So it was already very obvious to me that there needs to be more space and people are already on the street. I didn't have a picture of this, but you can also see during the daytime, especially on Sundays, drag queens cartwheeling into the street, and that's another inspiration I have. And yeah, we've already had really successful pedestrianizations throughout the year. We have Pride, even on Halloween. They're so popular that they become kind of uncomfortably overcrowded. And if we had a longer time and window for people to come, we could quote unquote flatten the curve and get more people to spread out and also spread the joy throughout the year. And also going to Montreal, I'm sure a lot of you have been there. They do pedestrian streets all over the city, but my inspiration was Rue Sainte Catherine, which goes through their gay village. And you can see the beautiful rainbow and patios and art and trees. And it's just a very beautiful street to be on.
Is this the same?
They're both.
Is it the same? Okay, awesome. So yeah, this is just a picture of me with Montreal City Councillor Chris Moise. I'll talk more about this later on, but throughout the process, we actually connected with city councillors and the city staff from Montreal just to see, how they do it there and whether we can try and emulate some of the things that they do there. So in May, I actually went in Montreal in person, and I met with Chris, and we talked about these things. He mentioned that he's the councillor for the village, basically St. Catherine, and they pedestrianize 3 kilometers of their village every year for the past 20 years. So it's crazy to think about that. They've been doing it for 20 years now, and they're looking into permanently pedestrianizing Rue St. Catherine next year. And we've only started the pedestrianization in Toronto 2 blocks, and it was tough. So interesting to compare, right? But this is basically the inspiration is Montreal.
I'm hopeful we'll catch up and beat them. Yeah, and the context is not that far off, right? Both Church Street and Rue St. Catherine are 4 lanes. There's like parking that's parallel to a subway line. So you can see there's multiple subway stations here. We have College and Wellesley. There's also parallel arterials that cars can take that are already more well suited to like further driving instead of just like a commercial strip that a lot more people walk on. And we've kind of seen a lot more interest in revitalizing gay villages across Canada. As gay acceptance has gone up. It's been great that people can live wherever they want to and more queer and gay events around the city, but the village is kind of losing its significance, and I think by pedestrianizing the street, or in Vancouver, they're kind of doing similar lane reductions, more vegetation, amenities, seating, we can really make it a destination to be again and kind of create more of that community space and third space that we always talk about we're losing or lacking. And the Church Wellesley BIA also has a master plan. You may know that Church Street is being resurfaced in a few years, so hopefully the pilot will inform it to be more pedestrian friendly. But you can already see some of lane reductions, more use of vegetation, seating, etc., but still having space for loading zones and whatnot for a functional business street. And trying to explain to like Torontonians and city councillors and staff that it's possible. This list can go all the way to the floor. We're not unique. Toronto loves to believe that, we can't do this, we're special, whatever. Cities have pedestrianized wide streets, old streets, historic streets, new streets, suburban streets, and there's multiple ways to do it. Francesca will talk about later, we struggled a lot with deliveries and garbage pickup and emergency services. And it's like, no other city has ever figured this out. How would we? So, yeah, and I feel that this already aligns with existing policy. This is something that the city should be doing, not the community. Vision Zero, as you know, aims to reduce pedestrian deaths or all road deaths to zero, and that starts with prioritizing pedestrians. Transform TO aims to get Toronto to net zero carbon emissions, and transportation is a huge source of emissions. Getting more people to walk by making streets vibrant and safe and comfortable, then people will walk more. And also the downtown mobility strategy. The city wants more people walking and cycling, especially for shorter trips. So again, making it more comfortable. This is kind of in the weeds, so I'll kind of like go over it, but the city has like a complete streets framework where they've identified Church Street already as a pedestrian priority street. So I feel like they should be doing more on making it safer for pedestrians. So how did this all start? I've kind of talked about for the last few years, I've already seen the overcrowding on Church, going to Montreal. So this is something I've been thinking about and also talking about within the community. And even when I don't bring it up, other people have brought it up as well. Like, Pride is so nice, I wish it was longer. So there's already been built up community support for years. So last year I made kind of a conceptual map of how it might look like. I have a map a little later, and amazingly, Councillor Moise and his office reached out to me and was like, hey, this is something we've also been interested in. Let's work together over this next year and make it a reality. I kind of put it this way because it's, so north is this way. So this is Wellesley, this is Carlton, and I initially envisioned 5 blocks because I wanted to kind of connect the whole Church Street strip and also connect Barbara Hall Park and the 519 and also connect to transit routes. But we kind of went through iterations. I provided a lot of different alternatives. So there's like do nothing, there's 5 blocks, 4 blocks, some other kind of variations. And I just, for funsies, since I like, if anyone here has like looked at a Metrolinx like business case, I've kind of did the like pedestrian safety, transit connectivity, mitigating traffic disruption, business and community activation, and then an overall score and use their like cute little pie charts. So Wellesley to Alexander was one of the top choices as well, and that's what we found as well with working with Moise's office and city staff, that was kind of the most realistic 2 blocks to start with, and hopefully we can expand in the future.
Getting into the fun part, where it all started. So this is actually part of a one-pager that I had created on behalf of the councillor's office to be submitted to FIFA. But you would think, why would we need, as a city, to submit something to FIFA for their approval? But if you look into the host city agreement that the City of Toronto has with FIFA, they actually have a no-fly zone within downtown Toronto, which Church Street is part of. So basically, this no-fly zone says that there should be no road closures or road construction within the downtown core. So we reached out to the FIFA Secretariat, which is basically the city division who handles FIFA, and they said that we're going to have to work on this together. You have to get FIFA's approval. So which is why we have this part over there that says submission of report to FIFA for approval, which is funny to think about. And then later on, a couple of weeks later, we learned that it just actually needs to go through the street events framework. So I actually don't know where we would end up if we had to go through FIFA, because I know that's a bit of a mess. Luckily, we had to go, or maybe unluckily, we had to go through the city's event framework, streets events framework, which I will discuss further on. But this is sort of the project timeline / one-pager that I needed to create for that. We first started with, of course, connecting with our partner for this project. It's the Church Wellesley Village BIA. What we learned with Market Street, it's a very small street right beside St. Lawrence Market. It is in our ward 13, but we learned that it's a community-led initiative that people really liked. And so Old Town Toronto BIA actually activates and takes charge in pedestrianizing the street. We help out behind the scenes in terms of, needing a permit, needing it to go through community council. But of course, we need a community partner for this. And so the obvious choice was, of course, the Church Wellesley Village BIA. We reached out to Jared Serrata, the executive director of the BIA, and he was very stoked about it. He's very energetic, he's very passionate, and he also takes inspiration from Montreal, because he's been there many times. And he says, yeah, let's do it in Toronto. Like, it's going to be a first, everyone's gonna love it, and here we are now. As I've mentioned, we had to go through the street events framework, so this is where things were, this is where things get a little bit rocky. So just to quickly get into the weeds of it, the City of Toronto has a street events framework. Basically, festivals and other kinds of street events, block parties, they cannot exceed 4 days. So as you can see here, it's up to 4 days. That's the bylaw of the City of Toronto. If it does exceed 4 days, it has to go through City Council. For Church Street, in the beginning, we only thought that it's going to Community Council, which is just Toronto East York, composed of a couple of city councillors only, not the entirety of City Council, only because Church Street doesn't have a TTC route. So if it's a minor arterial road and it's a festival, it doesn't need to go to City Council. However, because it's a 9-week period, we had to go through City Council. So these are the things that we had to go back and forth with city staff. Because the conditions that we were working with were very different from a typical street event. Although, again, there's no framework to look into pedestrianization, so we needed to really look into pedestrianization of Church Street through the street events framework. And then we started stakeholder meetings with a couple of what we call internal stakeholders within the village. So we have a couple of folks here. For example, the neighborhood association is very important. We also have the 519, a cornerstone institution in the village, of course, Buddies in Bad Times as well, the archives. And we also have 880 Cities in Open Streets Toronto, who were very supportive of pedestrianization, and they were the proponents of Open Streets Toronto, if people remember that. Hopefully we can bring it back. But they were really supportive. And so we had stakeholder meetings with these folks, and everyone was supportive. Everyone liked it. Everyone was really excited. This is just a quick overview. So the next step here then was reaching out to local businesses. We had, the buy-in from the BIA. We had the support from stakeholders. So the next step is actually getting the support from local businesses engaging whether they want the project to push through. So this survey actually included a couple of things. So we tailored it for each business. It not only gauged their interest in the project, but we also wanted to see how their operations and logistics work. So deliveries, garbage collection, we had to go one by one without city support. Usually in other, sort of city projects, it's city staff, public service who would have capacity to do that. So in this case, the city councillor's office and the BIA really had to take time to visit each business, and it took us a couple of weeks to actually finish it. And then we get to the interesting part, as Rodney mentioned, how did we, manage waste management deliveries and whatnot. So for waste management, so for context, the reason why these bins, the astral bins of the city are covered is because it's always covered in every street event. So now that you know that you can go to do Westfest, Ozfest, Pride, and you would see that all of them are covered because that's the framework of the street events requirement. So you actually can't use any of the street bins for street events because it's the event organizer, and in this case, it's the BIA that has to take care of it, right? So unfortunately, again, we want to double down that, it's not a street event, it's a pedestrianization pilot, but city staff can't really, think it outside the box. And so we had to purchase our own and assemble our own street bins, and we also had to think of a way to dispose the garbage. So we have closed-off bins in a parking lot somewhere where we take out the receptacles ourselves and then put it there. And I have to do it almost every day. So basically every day, a couple of times a day actually. So these are the things that we sort of have to go through, and then we have deliveries as well, based off of the survey that we did with local businesses. We developed, locations where they can drop it off. We had to give out notices to each business, tailored for each one of them, saying, hey, for you, you go here. For you, you go there, right? Which is very different. Usually we would need really, support from public service. And in this case, that was missing because, again, it's a street event. And then lastly, we have hostile vehicle mitigation. You would think this is typical. You would have probably seen it in certain events like Do Westfest. But this is actually quite recent that the city, is ramping up the requirements for hostile vehicle mitigation, obviously because of certain incidents that we've seen across the country, like in Vancouver. So it is really important, but it really took us a lot of time and resources to figure this out because we wanted to be creative because we didn't have the budget for this. So initially we wanted jersey barriers, which are those concrete barriers you would see in front of Union Station, for example, or at City Hall. They said we can't use that because it's not crash rated. So we needed to think of a creative solution. We were like, okay, let's use those orange water-filled barriers. And then they were like, but that's gonna be hard to move and heavy to move when emergency vehicles need to get in. And so we were like, okay, fine, we'll use hostile vehicle mitigation, but then we'd have to spend $25,000 more. So that's what we ended up with.
And just extra context, we have security guards at every single intersection required by the city to open and close these for emergency vehicles. Okay, makes sense. Can we use them to open and close it for garbage pickup at 5 a.m. in the morning? No, not allowed. Can we allow delivery vehicles in at off-peak hours? No, too dangerous. So there's a lot of really restrictive, very over risk-averse thinking that we're trying to work out and hope the city can become more flexible with.
And then just as Rodney mentioned, so now we have 24/7 security on the street. It's not what we want, obviously, because again, it's a pedestrianization. Pedestrian streets across the globe don't have that level of security, if at all they have security. And We also, I'm going to talk about this later, but we also have paid duty officers sometimes in the street, but I'll talk more about that later. So we have proposed, these are, Councillor Moise's Chief of Staff, Tyler Johnson, needed to draft this on his own. So we had no help from city staff in terms of actually, drafting these kinds of things up.
Yeah, so you can kind of see here that the center 2 lanes, we're not allowed to put anything in there because emergency vehicles need to go through. Okay, but it's kind of like 2 lanes, so they can both go by. So where all our tables and stuff are just pushed against the side of the street. And we even wanted to be okay, we get it, we can't put anything in the middle. Can we at least paint the street in the middle, like that beautiful rainbow in Montreal? And they're like, no, when you paint it, you have to section it off with cones and let it dry. And yeah, so.
Just for quick context, I actually almost stalled the project the day before the 19th when it opened because I was working on a mural, the fish, if you visited Church Street, it's the koi fish mural. I wanted that to be in the center lane, but they were like, no, you can't have it because then how will emergency services get in? So I needed to compromise and be like, fine, we'll have it on the curb lane, which is why it's on the curb lane, but. And then, we had working group meetings with city staff moving forward. So this is just basically working group meetings with a couple of divisions that have, will have a say before Transportation Services gives us the go signal and signs the permit for the road closure. So obviously we have the street events folks from Transportation Services, we have Economic Development and Culture, and we have police, fire, and EMS. EMS is paramedics. Of course, the BIA, and then Pride Toronto as well. Pride Toronto is included because one of the reasons why we wanted to do this before Pride, not after Pride, is because we wanted to accommodate certain things like Village Fest, which is a pre-Pride party, so that it's safer for them to have that party at the parking lot on Church Street. It's also going to save some money and some resources for Pride Toronto. So for example, when they close the street a couple of days before the festival, they actually will save money because it's already closed. So these are the things that we had to work with because we wanted to really collaborate with stakeholders within the village. And then MLS, TTC, just to work on a couple of things.
Yeah, so how did we prepare for more engagement and getting the community to galvanize more support? We were invited to speak here, and I was like, Civic Tech, this isn't really tech, but I'm gonna bring up tech. So Councillor Moise's office runs this amazing website called Toronto Centre Projects. I would definitely check it out, even if you don't live in the ward. You can there's different projects, people can suggest new projects, people can vote on projects they want to see, and there's some budget allocated. You can see the Church Street Pilot is there as well. There was a survey, you can give feedback as well. So it's kind of like a participatory budgeting democracy kind of tool that I think is really cool. We also circulated a petition. I partnered with a local queer artist, Jake Tobin, who created a kind of concept, a drawing of what the street could look like with a bunch of people sitting and walking and having joy in the street, and posted it online, and it got circulated widely within the 2S LGBTQ plus community, but also in the village and Toronto in general. We got thousands, almost 3,500 signatures by the time it got to City Council. So it also sent some emails automatically to certain councillors or city staff or chief of staffs to kind of show how much people want this. Also, most importantly, we got dozens and dozens of letters. If you look at the list on the city website is just a whole list of support letters, and we got over a dozen people to depute as well. And yeah, it got approved. It got carried unanimously at Toronto East York Community Council, and that was a great first step.
People were celebrating then. I wasn't definitely celebrating because there were many, many things that we had to deal with behind the scenes, including strict additional requirements from Toronto Police. So while the council vote was the community council vote was happening, and after that, and even after City Council, we had one-on-one meetings with city staff. Even at City Council, I had to prepare questions and a speech for Councillor Moise, actually, just to try and go against the staff memorandum that was attached to the community council report. It was very negative and it would basically stall the project. And most of the things in there were actually already resolved, or we're all already, resolving at that time. So it was either, I wouldn't say it was deliberately misinformation, but definitely a little bit misleading because it doesn't paint a picture. So we needed to, take take that into debate at City Council. And even when it was approved by Council, we had no assurance that the permit will be granted. So we really had to work behind the scenes while everyone was celebrating, because we can't celebrate it and then it's not going to happen, right? It's a big blow for the community, and this is a community-led initiative. Can you move on to the next slide? I think this would be, yeah. So I had one-on-one meetings with city divisions. We had to sit down with the police. We had to escalate it to a couple of deputy chiefs of police because they put a $3 million price tag on 2 blocks of pedestrianizing Church Street, which is insane. And that entailed 24/7 paid duty officers. And then we had to compromise and say, okay, we're gonna have 24/7 security. And they said, fine, but we need you to have paid duty officers for 12 hours for certain peak periods. And we determined then that it was going to be the first weekend of the project, which is June 19th, June 20th. And then the weekend that just passed, so the last weekend of the in-person FIFA games here, so the 2nd, the 3rd, and 4th of July. And it's already passed and nothing really happened. It was good. Street was vibrant, but it wasn't like crazy street festival amount of people. And moving forward, hopefully we can speak to them and say, hey, you don't really need paid duty officers, but that's essentially what we had to go through. We had to play their game and sure, have some paid duty officers, but not enough to actually solve the project.
What's interesting is I actually talked to a police officer like the other day on this weekend, and I was just kind of going on clueless, like, oh, like, why are there so many officers here? Was there an incident? Should I be worried? And they're like, oh, no, it's just like a street event. I'm like, oh, I heard that this kind of street event is like 2 months long, or there are going to be police here the entire time. And they're like, yeah, whenever there's like drinking or whatever, police need to be present. There can be like incidences. And I'm like, are there like 6 police officers like in every like main commercial strip or strip of bars? And they're like, yes, actually. And I'm like, okay. I was like, is 6 really necessary for 2 blocks? And they're like, actually, I think it's like we're under-resourced and we have not enough police. And I was actually shocked at that point. I was like, oh, like, how many police do you think we need for 2 blocks? And they're like, I can't give you a number, but I can tell you like this is not enough. And I was like, okay, like, nice talking to you, officer. I was like, I knew I wasn't going to be productive. But yeah, I wanted to speak a little bit more about the city council vote, and even that like negative memo she talked about that city staff made. I have some empathy because they've been really stressed with FIFA. Another thing on their plate is I would be stressed if I worked at the city, but some of the stuff was like not, like one of the mentions was like, oh, it's going to be overcrowded. I'm like, your problem with the event is that it's going to be too popular and people are going to enjoy it. And then another one is like, oh, what if a TTC route needs to divert on it? TTC buses rarely go on Church, and there's like literally so many other options they can take. So they were just making like a lot of barriers that are solvable. As many of you know, Councillor Bradford, who's running for mayor, tried to successfully amended the motion where if there were any unacceptable impacts, that staff could cancel the project at any time. And staff already kind of have the power to do that for like with street permits and stuff, but he was just further empowering them, and was, I don't know, some kind of political move where it's just really frustrating because as we know, like, Toronto is like a city of pilots, and now we feel like we need to pilot the pilot. Like, it's 2 months, like the first week, there might be some confusion, might be more traffic as people figure it out, but the whole point of a pilot, like 2 months is already pretty small, is that things will work itself out, problems will come out, and we'll try to solve it together instead of like, oh, we're gonna cancel it. But yeah, the final vote, it passed, and you can see who voted yes and no here. This was kind of like the art I was talking about that we were sharing, and we shared like a approved post, and this is kind of the final result of 2 blocks.
I think this was supposed to be, oh, actually, no, it's right. So after the city council vote, we of course reached out to residents as well. So again, our office didn't have the capacity, but we needed to really, reach out to residents and flyer door to door. So I want to just, give a shout out to my team who took a lot of their time in their day to day just to, come out and basically drop flyers in every building, on Church, on Wellesley, on Alexander, on Maitland, just to get this through, because we don't want anyone saying, hey, we didn't know anything about this, right? So these are the kinds of things that happen behind the scenes, but I'm really glad to have a great team behind me.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so Francesca works for Councillor Moise's office. So she's been doing like 100 times more work than me and I've been getting more recognition. So like her team she's been overworked, as like we've said, like the city doesn't really have the time or money to support us right now. So they've been really working overtime, and we have also been really relying on volunteers, which we'll talk about later. Please volunteer or donate. Yeah, do you want to talk about the...
Yeah, just to quickly go through this. So in terms of implementation, so after the road was closed, we had some issues with the closure as well. So the way that it works is that if you see those barricades or those hostile vehicle mitigation devices, those are not from the city. It's actually contracted. So a private company comes in and installs those kinds of things, and this applies for all street events. And the reason why I mentioned this is because it actually contributes a lot to the cost of a project, and that's the same case for many street festivals, including police and including security, right? So if you've seen news, in terms of, I've seen Afrofest, for example, or, Taste of the Danforth just recently coming back through the help of the provincial and municipal government. These are the things that these event organizers need to go through because it's so expensive nowadays to actually get these things to happen. So behind the scenes is actually what event organizers are dealing with, so just for context. And then, of course, thank you to our volunteers who helped us build furniture and continue to help us on a day-to-day basis. We have plenty here. I see very familiar faces. Again, it's a community-led initiative with no formal help from the city. So one of the things that has been highlighted for me, I would say, is that the community really came out for this project, and it wouldn't really happen without everyone coming together. And then, as I've mentioned, staff resources and schedule as well. So mainly, the councillor's office is on the ground. We have like a pop-up, like a community space there, so volunteers would know about that. I've been there 7 days a week. I haven't had a weekend until yesterday and today. I was actually a few days, it was nice. This isn't the normal, pedestrianization. This is basically an event where, you would need staff to be there on the ground with walkie-talkies, with, plus security. So it's certainly not the ideal. So, later Rodney will get into, the pedestrianization framework that we want to happen, but this is certainly not the ideal.
So how do we coordinate all our volunteers? So we had the logistics team we talked about, who are building the patios and the chairs and the benches and deploying the umbrellas, and Mark and I were Mark has been doing a lot of the painting of all of the patio fences. I was just there for one night and was already tired. We have a clean streets team. They help water the plants, sweep the streets, take out the garbage that we're talking about. We have an ambassador team. They greet people, they give people the directions, they tell people why the street is closed, or I prefer the term open to pedestrians. And also we're gonna try to solicit more donations, and also the same queer artist I was talking about, Jake Tobin, created stickers for us to kind of like, here's some stickers for donating. And and then we used to have a public safety team. We wanted to have, since of all the security requirements, we wanted more people out there to help. But since we have 24/7 security, and we have partnered with resources like Here to Help, which kind of connect people with services, do harm reduction and other things, we want to create a more welcoming space that's inclusive to everyone.
This is one of the important things that I really wanted to highlight today. You may have seen in certain news articles, and we're working on correcting that this project is funded by the city. It is not funded by the city. In fact, it's funded by the BIA as approved by their Board of Management. So, some of the funding comes from their operating budget. Some of them comes from in-kind donations from community organizations as well. So we have the Toronto Society of Architects who've provided, if you've visited Church Street, an exhibit of queer history on the street. So thanks to them. And 880 Cities as well has provided their staff support for evaluating the project. I see Katie's here, so I just wanted to say hi. Thanks, Katie. And The BIA has also applied for grants and have also reached out as well to private sponsors to provide some cash for the project. So there has been no major financial assistance from the city besides certain contributions like waiving the fees for the street permit or installing ramps on the street for accessibility. So we are actually currently in a deficit at the moment, and we need to actively fundraise, and we're currently doing that. So as Rodney mentioned, we have these stickers. It's not this one. This is an example from Jake Tobin, but we're going to be selling them on the street to fundraise for the project. So it's pretty much community-led. So if people say it's funded by the city and they curse at you for saying, why is the city funding like $500,000 for this project? It's actually not funded by the city. So.
And even for like just such a small thing like installing ramps, that's something we were panicking about because you need to like make it accessible and everything. And like those stopgap like ramps cost like $400, and with multiple ones it'd be in the thousands, and we're already over budget. So we had to like go like beg people in the city like, please like do the asphalt ramps for us. And like so even like small things like ramps like required so much effort and thinking and coordination. So yeah, we have the website called experiencethevillage.ca, and it's a kind of even broader kind of campaign that Francesca can talk about.
Do you want to just show the next slide? Yeah, so the Experience the Village campaign has 4 pillars. So first is to reinvest in the village. So for example, the councillor's office has pushed for the increase in budget of the 519. We've also acquired a community space for Pride Toronto and Glad Day bookstore to come back to the village. So they are coming back to the village. It has been approved by council. We're waiting for the location to be public because it's confidential for now. You have to sign it, but it is coming back to the village. And then next is to reimagine the space as well. One of the reasons why we're doing this pilot project as well is because Church Street is due for reconstruction. So that also includes the redesign of the street. So if this pilot project informs the redesign of the street, maybe we can see a permanent pedestrianized Church Street. And then of course the third one is pedestrianize. A lot of the folks who live in the village, who visit the village, want it to be pedestrianized, so that's also one of them. And of course to protect. So we've brought a cultural district designation to the village, so it is now a cultural district. What that means is that the city will provide financial support for local businesses and organizations in the village so that they don't have to leave, because we know that there are pressures, particularly in certain neighborhoods of Toronto, like Chinatown and the village. So this is great to have the village designated as a cultural district.
I know we're a little over time, so we'll try to speed it up. We're almost done.
And yeah, just to quickly talk about evaluation, it is evaluated in 3 ways. This Transportation Services recently, I think today, put out a citywide survey for residents. It's a citywide survey, so mostly anyone from the city.
Do it.
Yeah, do it, please. And then, of course, 880 cities will do a public life study, and this is more in detail where they will go out on the street to talk about the pilot project, but also to gauge support and interest from people who are on the street. And then, of course, Main Streets Canada as well has a dashboard, so this is accessible by the BIA. It's not accessible to the public, but the BIA sees whether it has increased walk-in sales for them. There is a delay of 2 months for this dashboard, but it's really helpful for post-pilot evaluation.
Yeah, so what's next? You may have seen many sinkholes on Church Street recently. Fun fact, there used to be a river under Church Street and we covered it, and nature always comes back, so the ground is very soft. But yeah, the water main needs replacing, the road needs resurfacing, so this is a really exciting opportunity that happens like once every generation to create a street that is beautiful, vibrant, and hopefully pedestrian friendly. But this is exciting because it goes even beyond Church Street. You may have heard recently that Councillor Matlow and Councillor Moise have put forward a motion that passed to get staff to study a citywide pedestrian framework, because we talked a lot about how we had to go through this like street event kind of framework where like everything was really rigid and it didn't really make sense, but that was the only way we could get through. So hopefully with pedestrianization framework that actually makes sense for like a seasonal one or summer, even year long, can actually make it easier. But also they're tasked with identifying possible streets in Toronto, so the city can actually be the one that's taking charge of this instead of just the community. And yeah, already like if I looked at the news earlier, and the Ossington BIA director already said this is something that we're keen to explore. So there's lots of interest around the city on this, and the city just needs to allow people and businesses in the community to kind of create what they want. And Francesca can kind of talk about what it means for that kind of culture of the city.
Yeah, just to quickly talk about this. This really serves as a groundbreaking momentum for the city for pedestrianization, but also for other bolder ideas for the city. It's a community-led initiative, but it certainly has shifted culture within public service and within the political side of City Hall as well. More councillors now interested in looking into bolder ideas. And I think it's also the same for transportation services. We had a general manager, Barbara Gray, before, who was a visionary. She retired, unfortunately. And we had to work with a different group of people within transportation services. But we've pushed the limits there. And we're excited to see more of this kinds of initiatives across the city.
Yeah, so here's just a collection of photos of some of us building, but how busy the street has been in day and night. Even though we're both frustrated that we could have gotten more support from the city, being the ones who actually come together as a community to donate and actually build it ourselves, studies have shown that if you actually are the one who's building the park or whatever, you have more vested interest in it to take care of it, take pride in it, and really feel a more sense of community. So yeah, thank you. You can go volunteer here or join our Slack. Yeah.
Yeah.